All right, so do we want to punch item number 2 to the front? And
These guys are here.
okay, call.
Unless they want to talk about vacant buildings.
No, not unless you need them tore down.
All right, I'm gonna call Mark back and put him on speaker.
Yeah, let's do that.
Hey, Mark. Mark? Hey, we are going to do your item. We're going to go ahead and get it done first. If you want to, I'm going to put you on speaker if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so the first item on the reordered agenda is the gravel mine expansion at the Port Orchard Industrial Park.
Maybe let Mark know we got some guests here from RV.
Yeah,
Mark,
Dan?
can you hear us?
Not very well.
Can you turn him up?
It's as loud as it goes.
Hey, Mark, this is Dan with RV.
Yeah. Hey, Dan.
Yeah, and Norm Olson's here.
Hey, Norm.
Okay, so we have the 2 maps that we provided you a little while ago.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago. So should we just go through those, or do you have a staff report or something?
Nope, jump right in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I guess for me to interject at this point, I definitely support the project. I think, Nick, we were talking about potential issues that need to be resolved with the, more of the short plat.
Well, we're looking at a BLA. Is that you think there's a short plat needed?
Well, I think that's where I'll need Nick to interject is, we could potentially deal with the BLA, but we also have to, we've got to look at,
Why don't you guys, those are probably
That's, you know,
details this committee doesn't need to
some
worry
easement.
about.
we have to look at easement provisions as well.
I think,
So, go ahead.
I think, Mark, here the issue this morning is this something we want to do? And I don't see why we wouldn't want to, but, so just how about, maybe Norm, since he's not on speaker, can kind of give us a high level what it is the proposal is.
Okay. All right, so this is the essentially the existing conditions map, and right here, if you drive up into the industrial park, you see the gravel mine. Right here is where you can correct me if I'm wrong, but right here is the large cut slopes that you see up there, and this is on an existing slope easement that's on parcel B, which is a lot owned by the city. And the proposal would be to, right now, parcel B and parcel C, are both owned by the city, you can see, and parcel A is a lot that's owned by RV. And so what we would propose is we do a boundary line adjustment, and the city would sell to RV or trade to RV more of parcel A, and we would include that in their lot 3. And then we would move the line between parcel A and parcel B, or parcel C, the city, or it could stay wherever you guys wanted it. But probably it would move over here, so you could have the roadway would be right on the, well, we would, because this would be RV's parcel, so the boundary line would move over to the roadway. And in exchange, assuming the appraisals and the estimate for the road was to work out, RV would build, grade, and build that roadway, and it would actually go right up to the proposed decant facility site.
The existing decant.
Existing.
Is it? Oh, it's built?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I haven't been up there.
So that road's there already, or are we accessing the decant from a different direction?
You're coming in through the old garbage dump.
Okay.
Yeah, you come in from down here in a not preferred.
Parcel C, a lot of that is the dump site, correct?
Yes, right in here is, there's an old garbage dump in there.
Okay. So what would we would end up with basically a road, and then we would really probably want to, whether we did it or you guys do it, plat that frontage there for commercial pads, correct?
Yeah, because the long term is this would be industrial lots when we'd have to mine it up because the dirt has to go anyway. The elevation's too high to match anything. So we would just mine it out as the gravel mine because we have a permit.
So you would mine this portion as well?
Uh,
Because that looks pretty steep right now.
yeah, and I think we would have to get it to blend with the road. Otherwise, it would be unusable coming off of this road because of the slopes,
Right.
percent of slope coming up here.
Topo on this map.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I think it would be unusable if it didn't get. And if you're going to take the dirt out, you might as well mine it.
How many years would it take you to mine that?
That's a really good question, but I don't have a good honest answer for you. It depends on what's going on in the local area with construction.
Best guess.
It could take as long as 10 years, but it depends on which part we mine first. It could be less than that if we said, hey, this area needs to be mined first because they need this area.
And also on their existing mine, they worked through DNR to get an expansion of that to go deeper to get the soil.
Yeah.
And so right now, where the cut slopes might be over here, but they have a permit to go deeper. So
Yeah.
So down to the grade that's, you're not going to dig a hole though.
I'm digging a hole, but I'm filling it as I dig it at the same time, so it's never looks like a hole. And I don't have any intentions of doing that in here. I'm just doing that right here so I can keep going until we can see if this is going to work out. Because I don't want to if I let my mining permit go, it would be next to impossible to get one back for this area.
So as it stands right now, this area right here has limited access for the city, and limited. I mean, and getting access to it is a challenge. No utilities, and
Difficult grades.
difficult grades. So in exchange, you would have access to a better access. Here's the stream that runs right here. You would have an access on the other side of the stream to your property, your existing parcel B, and
Where is that property that Earl Dow owns?
It's over here.
Yes.
It's a patchwork of lots in this area.
but he.
Right.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead, Mark.
I mean, that's one major benefit of this proposal is going to provide access on the back side there. It also resolves Carol's concerns about how we're leasing property.
What's that concern?
We've got on the dump site, Caseco, we've got 1, 2 or 3 leases there, dirt leases.
Down here,
on the
right?
dump site that
The buses too. Yeah.
I think
Trans-
state law
trans-
says you can't offer for sale or lease property without doing a subdivision. And so we've carved
Oh,
up
I
a
see.
piece of property through leases without subdividing.
ideally, it's an old dump and we'd move, maybe, lease, subdivide that lot properly back there on the, the new lots. And then get the folks off of the dump site, and maybe we put a transit park and ride on the dump site. We cap it. Just my wild
And
idea.
then the only other thing, I'm coming into town now, but the other aspect is the city will need to be prepared to work with RV on if we provide the materials, or we've got to get utilities in that road as well.
Yeah, to use it for industrial.
So we're, we don't want to have to tear up a new road, so we've got to coordinate what that looks like.
So if we wanted to move forward, is the next step appraising the gravel value and
The property.
and the improvement costs to try to?
I mean, in my mind, and I don't know, it's only a gravel mine if they do it. Nobody else is gonna.
Nobody else could.
Nobody else is gonna ever make that a gravel mine.
So
So,
it's really just the property value.
yeah, it's an industrial piece of property with limited access and limited utility access. So,
Sounds to me that we would need an appraisal.
Yes, you would
once
need
we
a-
understand how the boundaries are moving. But if this is some sort of trade, it has to be as part of a development agreement, I would think, not as part of. Otherwise, you would subdivide it, and we would offer for sale one of the properties, and they would, sell the other property, and the short plat would be conditioned on building a road. So I think the development agreement is a way to bring all these moving pieces into one framework.
Does anybody have any concerns with?
Well, I just have a question with that. Relieve the necessity for doing some kind of a open public sale of the city asset.
I don't know. It's a question for the attorney.
I mean, if we were offering it for sale, it has more value to RV because they can mine it.
Well,
Bjorn over
I'm
here
not-
buying it, buying a mountain that he can't mine. Bjorn might be interested, but it's worth $10 to Bjorn, but it's worth, $100 to RV
My
because.
point is going through that process.
Yeah, I think we have to go through that process to, somehow value it and.
Well, that's what I'm curious. If in this trade, we're going to get benefit if that alleviates that need, but I don't, that's an attorney question.
Yeah.
I think I think Nick's on to one. I think we want to end up at the finished with lots, whether that's us doing that process or it's part of this process, so that we can lease to transit and to Casco or whoever or sell. What we've got an asset there, because we're going to end up with something in the end, industrial pads that have value.
I think the key is determining at this point whether we're interested in seeing this developed and seeing it mined. And if we are, then we go to the next step.
Okay.
You can hang up on him.
there he is.
Hey, good morning, Mark.
It's horrific.
You came through Gorst?
Yeah,
I heard about that.
that car almost hit my son. He said he had to dodge out of the way, and when he did it would have hit him, but it hit that gal right behind him.
Yeah, it was horrific looking. Anyway, so
We're kind of done.
kind of done. I just wanted to make sure that, so we talked about the access and park and ride and all that. I kind of heard that.
Yeah.
This road, one thing is I know that we're having issues with these roads at 3 inches. We should have had a thicker road section.
Yeah.
So we need probably more like a 6-inch road section on that. But we got to figure out utilities. How we're going to split that up, because we're going to want power phone, cable.
I think we want to be at a higher level here. It's just,
Right.
do we want to move forward with this? Is there any objections to that? Is from here, I think it's probably taking it to the full council and making sure everybody wants to move forward. And then from there, it's working out the details of the agreement, what the road looks like, how we're doing it, how we're valuing it. Do we want to take this to a work study? Do we want to talk about it from the dais?
I think work study's fine. I think we've got some questions to answer, and then take it to work study.
I would suggest work studies.
Okay, so July work study.
Would
A month
you
out.
be ready by July with everything, or?
Well, I don't know what more we need
Until we
to.
get
They
the
don't think
council
nothing.
blessing, I wouldn't go much further.
Okay.
I think it's Nick or you talking to the attorney, how we've got to value that, what define the process a little more for the council. How are we going to get to that picture? With some help from the attorney, is it Nick suggested a development agreement? That could be the tool. And so how do we get from where we're at today to there? What's that instrument would be helpful, I think, to the council.
And actually, the more I'm thinking about this, if you tie the development agreement to a short plat or a subdivision permit, we can potentially stretch out the approval over more than just the 5 years and have, 10 or 15 years to build the subdivision. And that's a way to allow this, allow us to take our time with it. So there is some benefit of us doing a subdivision as part of a development agreement and agreeing who's going to get what lot at the end of that process, but it allows us to keep a subdivision alive for a longer period of time to give us time to build the road and the utilities.
Yeah.
Now, if you assume you had to go through a public sale process, then a subdivision makes sense with a development agreement. Because a BLA doesn't make sense if RV isn't the ultimate buyer. But you could have a development agreement that was conditioned that if they ended up being the buyer, then they can go through a different process than a subdivision.
Yeah.
Could you even do a BLA today?
Well, there's going to have to be a deed to transfer ownership
Right.
at the same time as a BLA.
So the process wouldn't matter, except whoever was the ultimate buyer of the property.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a Sharon.
Do we want to end up with the finished lots at the end is the question, to lease or to sell? Or do we want to just make commercial or industrial land available and we don't care who the owner is? I think that's one of the policy questions that needs to get answered by the council.
That's a big question.
That's the work study, I think.
Mhm. What's the end game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the end game is we have access to the other industrial property. We resolve our current leasing issues and we have a better use for this property. We position ourselves for that. And I agree. I kind of heard, the conversation of this hillside. It doesn't have value other than as a mining operation. So.
Yeah, and after it's mined, then it does have some value
It'll
for
have-
industrial pads.
Yes, it will, as RV's been doing for 20, 30 years, kind of just putzing away, and then eventually it gets down to a grade. And
I would think we don't want to wait 25 years to have that road and.
Oh, no.
No,
the
we're
road
just
had to
talking
be in
about,
the upfront.
like, these lots are here now because of the mining
That's
operation.
exactly.
But it's taken a long time to get there.
The whole industrial parks was the mine, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, we'll stick it to the work study and Nick and Mark maybe put your heads together with the attorney.
With those options.
Yeah,
What's our
what's our
ownership pattern look like at the
yeah,
end?
what's it look like at the end game?
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, that would be really helpful.
Dan, what was your last name for the record?
Wolford, W-O-L-F-A-R-D.
F.A.?
F-A-R-D.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
you guys. Do we want to go to item number 3?
No,
on
we
the-
don't, because Mr.
I can
Pichardi,
step out.
either way, doesn't matter. You want to be next? Your jacket's missing something.
It came right back to you.
Horrible throw.
Wow, it hit you in the hand?
My left hand. That's a nice throw.
He's gonna underhand this guy.
Oh. This is Ken Cambridge from the Shires Law Firm.
Hello.
And Bjorn Bjorky, who's the general manager of Cormorant Woods. So, and just harassing you. They're here to talk about the golf cart zone. And Mr. Cambridge prepared actually a draft ordinance for us. He's trying to audition for city attorney or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, shop local. Does everyone have a copy, or people need it?
We've got it in our packet, I think. Went out of turn. Where is it?
It's up
The
there.
ordinance.
Very back.
This one.
This one. Thank you. I also, did you include my little memo?
The email?
I had an email from the chief that he has no concerns. I took a,
I didn't get that.
you didn't get that, I'm sorry. Most of the things, I did some research on this prior to Mr. Cambridge preparing this, and most of the things that, he's got most of these things that I noticed, that there's an RCW that allows this, and then I looked at there's 4 other municipalities
At least.
that have these. And I'll just quickly ran through the things that I caught. Ken already had in here about you need to have a valid driver's license. That these can only operate a half hour before and a half hour after sunset. A couple of communities require a registration decal. I wouldn't recommend that. I think it'll cost us more money than the $25 we charge to collect it. It's just if we, I'm not sure why that other community does that. One of the things I caught in another community that might be beneficial to this draft ordinance is because there's so many trails and parks out in McCormick Woods, to call out a prohibition on driving the golf carts on any of the paths. It says it, but sometimes you have to put in an ordinance to police common sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're talking about the wooded trails.
Your wooded trails out there, yeah, just so somebody doesn't start making shortcuts and out there. So Langley requires headlights, taillights, and turn signals. I hadn't seen that in anybody else's ordinance. And then I found a little better definition of golf cart is defined as a gas-powered or electric-powered motorized vehicle with 4 wheels not designated to be operated at a speed more than 25 miles an hour, whose purpose can include, but is not limited to, the playing of golf and as a means of ordinary transportation. And so this, if we wanted to move forward this, a golf zone is a defined area, and it can't exit any area, so it can only be 25 or 30 miles an hour. I think Ken's got this at 20, and I think 25 in the RCW I saw. You couldn't take it out on Old Clifton. It can't cross any roads that have a speed limit of higher than 25 miles an hour. So it would really be defined really to the first subdivision of McCormick Woods and what their current the Eldon Trails tracks that they're currently
And
developing.
presumably McCormick West someday.
Yeah, if it was linked, not via Old Clifton Road, that would. So, anything to add, Ken?
No, you did an excellent job, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? What do you guys think of this?
I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
There must have been a push for this that I didn't hear the background on.
Sean and I have talked about it a little bit, back channel, and so I did some research, and then Ken's their firm represents McCormick Woods, so Ken just prepared the draft ordinance that we have before us, and then I'd done my background at work previous to that, and which he captured probably 90% of what I had.
Historically, the McCormick, for what, about the last 15 years since Sean's group, C&M, they haven't allowed private golf
20 years.
carts because they wanted to protect their leasing fleet. They would lease these golf carts, and so they didn't want a bunch of private carts, cutting into that revenue. But I think the determination now is that maybe it'll adjust the leases, and private carts would be an amenity that would bring people into the restaurant and things like that. And so we decided to
Another form of transportation.
make it more of a golf cart community.
Yeah, foster a sense of community a little bit more, the golfing community in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay. How about, what do you think about some of these other, I mean, what do you guys think about registering them?
Why?
I just, it was in another city's ordinance, and that's I captured everything that I saw, or tried to.
Unless we have to, I wouldn't say.
That's
we should.
kind of
Talk
a-
to the police department, because they're probably the only ones that would be interested in something like that.
Jeff had no interest And it would be the clerk's office actually, or finance
Well,
actually.
they would be the ones doing
doing
it, but the cops would take advantage of it, I would assume.
Yeah, he didn't have a preference to that, and I asked that
Okay.
question.
No, I don't.
Did he have a preference about taillights and headlights?
He didn't. As a matter of fact, he's got one of these in Nebraska, and he thinks it's kind of a good idea.
To have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. But with the hours, half hour.
Yes,
and
yes.
I thought, well, I don't think it's necessary, and it's probably expensive, so I would get them on mine. But
Now, was that
Yeah.
a half an hour after or a half an hour
No, he-
before?
I misstated it. You're right.
half hour
After sunrise.
After sunrise and before
sunset.
sunset.
Yeah, I said it backwards. You're absolutely right. So I misspoke there. One other insurance. I mean, your golf cart is typically covered under your homeowner's insurance. Cheney requires you to carry proof of insurance in your golf cart. I mean, if we're not registering it, you're not. I don't own one, but I don't believe it's like your automobile coverage. I think it's something. It's a.
Who pays for it if you drive your golf cart and crashes into a car on the road?
That's.
I don't know. I don't know if it's homeowners or it'd probably be your homeowners.
Homeowners. Yeah, it'd be like, yeah. So I Cheney was the only one that had that, and I don't know.
We've had it happen once. Between 7 and 8. I can't remember. I think her homeowner's insurance paid for the woman driving the golf cart.
Was it your golf cart or?
Yes, it was our golf cart.
I mean, I think it would maybe behoove us to have a requirement that you insure it, but I don't know. Are you going to carry your homeowner's policy around in your golf cart?
Yeah, I just don't know if the police, if there was an accident, if the
Yeah.
police are going to require proof of insurance on the spot, or if you're going to get
Yeah, that's
cited for
a
not
lot of
having
the
it.
stuff is the cop shop.
I didn't see that in the RCW, but that's something maybe we need to look at. But only one municipality had that in their ordinance, which was Cheney. So I think that's probably an insurance a question we want. How are they insured?
Yeah, Sharon.
Or well, and it's what do we want to require?
Right.
Well,
in our
what do
code?
we need first, and
Yeah.
then once we figure out what we need, then
Well, everybody but Cheney's silent on it.
well, that still doesn't make it right.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we need?
So with your auto insurance, you get a little card you carry
Yeah,
around. With your
right.
homeowners, you don't get that
You don't.
card.
Yeah.
You get a packet of information.
Yeah. We'll ask Sharon, or Ken can research
Yeah, I don't
it too.
think it's required.
It's not
through the
required, it's
statute.
not in the statute. But do we have any liability because they're on our right of way
Yeah, I don't know.
if we don't require them to have insurance, even if they're not carrying it on them?
There's no real downside, I don't think, to requiring it. Just, put it in .040, maybe a new 4, just say you're required to have appropriate assurance.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think there's a downside to that.
I don't think so either, and then we can run that. I don't think Sharon hasn't seen this yet either. We just brought it to the committee.
Another one would probably be SDWC or MSRC.
Yeah,
So ready for a work study?
I think so.
Well, we
July?
can get these questions answered.
Well,
Right.
we can bring those
Yeah.
we'll get these if we
Yeah.
when we get these questions answered, bring that forward with. So that'd be 4 weeks from now in July
Okay,
at 6:30 in the evening,
okay.
and we can probably put you first or second depending on the last guys that were in here. You guys can arm wrestle for it.
With RV,
Yeah.
these guys are tough.
Right.
July, do you have an exact date?
I could.
Third Tuesday at
Third Tuesday.
6:30.
Anything else?
Not for me.
18th.
I can't.
July 18th, yeah.
18th. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Would you like me to do some of these items? I'm happy to.
It wouldn't hurt if you wanted to. I'm heading out of town till till Friday.
Okay.
Let's talk maybe Monday.
Okay.
And then some of the things I got on here and incorporate that in there, and then we'll take it and send it to our attorney, and we'll do the research on the insurance
Okay.
between now and Monday.
Well, and I would ask MSRC if there are other issues that they have knowledge of, so. I think the concept's a good idea, just make sure we get all the
Yeah.
T's crossed.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, vacant commercial buildings.
Do we need Sean back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He can take himself.
he's probably sitting out there. He'll catch them. We'll chat after this, Nick.
Did this just get assigned to me?
Kind of.
I was gonna suggest just giving Sharon a routing number and letting Shires and Sharon work on it together.
Just the MSRC research
Oh, yeah.
on the insurance versus paying Sharon $190 an hour. You're only $100 an hour.
Okay, item number 1. Continued discussion of vacant commercial buildings. So it looks like we got more information from Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
I missed the last meeting, so how did we get to where we're at?
We were presented with a couple of, I think, of bookends. One was more carrot, one was more stick. This was the carrot.
Okay.
I think, was it Burien?
It was Everett.
Was it Everett?
Everett,
yeah.
had the
They
stick.
had more of a stick approach to it.
And I think part of our feeling on the carrot was that the incentives that are offered, are not really out of the ordinary for us because we typically are pretty fast in responding to people's requests for meetings and permits. And so how much of a carrot are we actually offering?
Symbolic, probably.
Yeah.
Well, is it something we're interested in? Or is it really
Practical
more of
side
a
of
paper
it. Obviously,
exercise?
we've got this downtown issue, but this doesn't solve that.
No, it
The
doesn't.
challenges at hand.
No, it doesn't. It's symbolic.
Yeah.
It's so that we can say,
But I think-
we're trying to do something, and then we're not sitting on our hands, but we're doing these things.
Right.
It's more.
What
It's
you've got going on with that master development plan would be
Uh-huh.
get all the right people together.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the things that are required in Everett are the things that are the biggest problems, like with the Myries building, and this would have given us a little bit more of a tool to require that as opposed to having to constantly call and encourage them to do the right thing.
I mean, there's stuff percolating, and it doesn't happen fast enough for me either. There is an employer that's got a project they want to bring a couple hundred jobs downtown. So there is something in the works there, and I can't talk about that on the record, but. Ideally, getting a master plan done for downtown.
I think that's way more important personally.
Yeah.
But it's $200,000, and until we get a group of property owners that want to help fund that, are we wasting our money to master plan for our vision versus a shared vision with the property owners? That's it's tough to spend that money to put something on a shelf because that isn't what the property owner wants to do. We've got some market factors that are, Bremerton is exploding right now. I scratch my head why that isn't trickling right across the water here, because we got a foot ferry. They've got, how many units? It's over 1,000
Yeah.
in downtown, in various
It's
states.
just one more leg of a trip.
Yeah.
You can walk right down and be in Seattle in
I
28 minutes.
honestly, it's easy to say, I think it's a matter of time, but I think the
Yeah.
time frame that we're waiting for is getting shorter and shorter, because, the developers are looking all over.
Somebody that, project that somebody's sniffing around on, he's not somebody we really want to have as a developer, because he's been a problem for us, but I was looking at a 5-story building down by West Bay that between the grade at Bay Street up to Perry, they could get 5 stories in there, and what was that, 30 or so units, maybe?
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was about 30.
That's, fronting Bay Street across from the pedestrian path. That's one of the pieces we want, and and when we've got
Where would that be? Would that be?
East of the Blue Goose,
Okay.
there.
Over, I guess it's section 6 or 7 of the path. It's 7, I think, is the narrow part that is cantilevered out over the.
Where our pathway terminates right now on the other side of West Bay, basically, right there's a couple of houses right there next to a 5-story condo building or apartment building. Right now, it'd be next to that.
Which it would only be 1 story on the uphill grade and 5 stories on the downhill grade.
Okay. So there's some elements of this that maybe are worthwhile talking about. Section 040 on page 2. So those are essentially your maintenance obligations for vacant buildings. And I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the registration process and the payment of a fee to register a vacant building is maybe a little beyond what we can
I agree.
administer.
I agree.
I think the window displays for commercial spaces that are vacant for more than 30 days would probably be a good idea. I think the way to do this would be just with it can be a civil infraction if you don't comply with these requirements for a vacant building, and leave it at that.
So they've got to be in. So what section were you at?
I think it's 040 and then
What page was that?
Second page.
Page 2.
2 and then 4060.
To the space codes.
Essentially
regulation.
everything but the registration.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we need an annual report either.
Yeah, and I think this is probably would take the direction of, in most cases, the threat of a civil infraction is going to be enough. But if you have a corporation with overseas owners or something, then maybe you do need criminal penalties to enforce this or to really drive it home. I don't think we'd ever have to go to court for something like that, but the threat of going to court is going to get compliance.
Can we lean if we go in and start doing mowing and maintenance? Can we lien the property for those?
I don't know. I would have to talk to Doug a little bit more about that. I think this would be strictly, these are requirements for you for maintenance of your building, and if you don't comply, there's a penalty associated with it. But can we go in and do something like under the dangerous building code? It probably doesn't rise to the level of dangerous buildings, which you have authority in state law to go in and take care of something that's dangerous. This is just ugly.
What Nick is referring to is derelict.
Yeah.
Derelict building.
Well, we had some of that down here.
Yeah.
But-
But I think the West Bay, not West Bay, but behind Kentucky Fried Chicken, that complex is probably one of the worst downtown. From the old bank site where the grass gets to be, waist high before Doug finally, encourages them enough to mow the grass, and one of those buildings is a code enforcement issue, But downtown is what's more visible to everybody else, and we get the most complaints about. I don't have
So if you want me to bring this to Doug and talk about the possibility of trying to enforce section 040 and 060, we could see how he would approach that and see if he could turn that into a proposal working with the attorney. I think that would be
I think that's a good first.
the next step.
See
Yeah.
what you say.
I think those elements of 040 would really address most of the complaints we got about Myers Building, for example, and how it was falling, or looking like it was falling into disrepair.
And would you just want this in the downtown, or would you want this in other
citywide.
areas?
Citywide.
Okay. And it would apply, I guess, only to vacant commercial space. In Port, it would be vacant, the title would be maintenance of vacant commercial space in Port Orchard. So,
Because
I'll ask
I mean,
him.
we've got a code enforcement provisions already for residential.
All right.
Anything for the good of the order?
Just a quick question on enforcement of the, that car stripping operation up on.
It's underway.
Pardon me?
It's been initiated, the one on west, or south,
Yes.
south of south?
South of South.
Yes,
On West Street.
yes.
It's not west, I think it's Garrison.
Okay, on Garrison. Here. Sounded better on West though. It was more complex.
And then I had one thing for the good of the order. At the next council meeting, you'll be, every year when we do annual comp plan amendments, you have to adopt the agenda for the year, which says these, yes, please work on these amendments. And so we have 3 proposals. One of them is McCormick Woods to put in a community center next to the clubhouse on parcel B, and they want to change the designation of half of that so that they can have a community center and a coffee stand inside the community center. Then the next one, we're adopting the new 6-year street plan, and then the big one, Jim and I, after consulting with the group that's writing the Blackjack Creek Watershed Plan, and looking at the history of the Bethel annexation, where we took in all that area and zoned it R4.5, we actually downzoned that area when we took it in. And so from just south of Sedgwick to just north of Lund, we're proposing upzoning a pretty large area, but we're also expanding the green belt for those areas that are steep slopes and critical areas. And so there's about 200 properties involved in some land use changes that we want. It'll actually add capacity to the city in commercial and in residential.
So basically, I think it's Lumberg basically to set.
Yeah, it's Lundberg. The Riverstone project from a few years back that's now expired is included to upzone the upper portion of that site.
But then
What's the
downzone the
density?
critical areas.
What's that?
What's the density you're looking at?
There's a variety. There's going to be near Sedgwick. There's going to be a small pocket of R20. There's going to be some R12, and then mostly R8, and then only some existing residential that's currently at an R4 density is going to remain R4. Everything that is undeveloped is going to go to R8 because the roads are so bad out there. I don't think that R4.5 is going to result in any development because the cost of improvements is too high.
We've had a couple of meetings with folks that had plats that they've been trying to get developed, and between the sewer lift stations that are required and the road improvements they need, they're going, we're not going to build this 20 home subdivision because it doesn't pencil. We're going to build 2 houses on this 5 acres, and that's all we can make work just so we can get our money back out of the land. We're going, no, we don't, So the solution we think is to increase the density so we can get potentially some multifamily stuff in there that will pay for the infrastructure improvements, and then downzone the critical areas,
At the bottom of the ravine, basically, or on where there are steep slopes.
They're at 4.5 also. So.
And we're really, I think our approach to this is, in most cases, the people that are being upzoned, I can't imagine them objecting to that unless they don't want to develop their property or sell it ever, in which case they might object if their taxes would go up a little bit. There may be some pushback on the green belt, but they're still allowed residential development, and that we have to point out to them, look, this is the critical areas data that we have. This is what would be required to develop the property, and hopefully they'll understand that this is actually going to probably lower their property tax, their assessed valuation, and realistically they have very little development potential. But we're not going to unless it was going to create a really irregular boundary, we don't want to force this on anybody. So if somebody wants to opt out, we're not going to push this unless they're going to be one little island of a certain zoning surrounded by something else, in which case we have to make a determination of whether that should or shouldn't happen.
And is it 2 or 3 parcels there on Retzel?
Yeah, there's a few parcels on Retzel that are needing to be fixed. They're all single-family houses right now, and one of them wants to redevelop, but it's zoned commercial and they can't build single-family there. We actually initiated this 2 years ago, and 2 of the owners objected because they thought it was really valuable as commercial. So we haven't included those 2 properties, but the rest of them are still in the discussion.
So the first 2 parcels we're going to leave commercial. They're right off Mile Hill Drive, but the remaining is 2 or 3.
There's some on both sides of the street, but
and then just the frontage improvement costs for, and it transitions right into a residential area. The street cost improvement. We met with Bob, one of the guys, Bob Disney wants to build a new house there, and he goes, "This is what it should be: is a house here," and I agree with him. It just isn't a good commercial area.
so in any event, you're only being asked to bless the roster so that we can consider it, and then the
Right.
planning commission will give you a recommendation, and then ultimately you get the final say on what the amendment looks like. But we might actually get some people to show up to a planning commission meeting, so that'll be a positive outcome anyway.
Okay,
Perfect.
anything else? All right, we're adjourned.
Less than an hour.